Hi everybody, welcome to the land of low friction as always, and today we're going to get the first of the detail reviews done that I'm very behind on getting these done, so thanks for your patience. I'm going to hopefully be pumping them out at a much more rapid rate now. Alright, so the first one that we're catching up on is the Wolftooth WT1 lubricant. So I get asked still fairly regularly about this lubricant and what we think of it and so on, because it does have sort of pretty big claims, I would say, and some interesting claims to cover, as well as like it comes from a good company. So I guess a spoiler alert, the review is going to be pretty harsh on I guess the product, so WT1, and for me it's a bit, I guess, disappointing to have to do a pretty harsh review on this product, because I really overall like the company Wolftooth. I think I've mentioned before, like over the years, especially for some sort of gravel and mountain bike stuff, I've used a number of Wolftooth products. I've always found their products to be really high quality, work just beautifully as they sort of state that they will do, and for a very long time. So it's been one of those companies that sort of grew from a very sort of small beginning to I think that a really good company and larger company now, based on the success of good work and good products. So yeah, I apologise to Wolftooth. This is probably going to seem a bit harsh. I apologise also. Normally I would prior to such a review, I would contact the company and run through this and give them obviously a sort of right of reply or a chance to reply. Just with time, I haven't done that, and the success rate of doing that with sort of getting information on lubricants has been pretty low. Normally, I'm more likely to get a reply after the fact anyway, once if a company's seen it and then been a bit upset. Yeah, apologies to Wolftooth. So post this review, I will send a copy, or I guess send you this link, and then if you wish to discuss, refute, disprove, right of reply, then obviously please put all that forwards, and I will be able to then do an update covering precisely what your sort of response is, should you have one. But anyway, let's get into the wonderful world of WT1. The first thing to do will be to go through the actual product claims, and then we'll have a look at sort of how they matched up to some reality. And yeah, hint, not so well, and we'll be able to explain why. Okay, Wolftooth have a groovy little video which sort of helps market the products, and I'll play some bits from that because there's a fair bit of rather interesting claims versus, I guess, a bit of a reality check. So we'll see how that goes. Internet's been pretty dodgy down here, but let's see if it works this time.
WT1 could be better described as a premium synthetic drivetrain treatment. It's really got two distinct properties. One is cleaning the chain, the other is lubricating the chain. Regarding the cleaning the chain, after application, it begins immediately on working on getting the grit and the grime, factory grease out of the chain. Then the lubricating properties take over. One of the things that sets WT1.
Alrighty, let's have a little chat about that. Okay, so two main parts from that little segment. So actually, I'm lying, sorry, three main parts. All right, number one, the cleaning of the factory grease. So it does have some detergent as part of the product to clean the chain. Now, just in general, to clean the factory grease off a chain does require a good amount of a pretty strong solvent. There are some new products out, which I'll probably cover soon. So Silka's got an exciting new chain stripper out, which is probably a competitor to UFO Clean. They're really concentrated stuff, so you can use a pretty small amount to clean off the factory grease. Can the amount in a drip lubricant that you're putting on, so you're going to be putting on about 3 mil of lubricant onto your chain. A very small percentage of that is detergent, which I'll be covering that specifically in a moment. So how is that going to deal with dissolving and removing factory grease? So that's sort of question one. If you were to set about cleaning the factory grease off your chain with 3 mil of solvent, good luck with that. Setting about cleaning the factory grease off your chain with 3 mil of a lubricant, of which a part of that is a detergent, you're going to need more than good luck with that. All right, part two. The claim of obviously sort of that you apply the lubricant, there's cleaning action that takes place to remove sort of factory grease and grit, I believe he said, and then the lubricating properties get to work. So what Harry Potter magic is going on with this potion whereby you apply this liquid, it's going in, it's getting grit out from the chain, and then it's switching modes to basically lubrication. If that seems like a tall story or a little far-fetched to you, then you will not be, I guess, wrong to question that claim. Okay, and the third one, so not specifically mentioned in that clip, but it's all very linked in, just with regards to, I guess, lubricants that claim that they clean as they lubricate. All right, so Wolftooth WT1, it's quite a wet lubricant. Now, for bicycle chains, being the fact that they're operating completely externally and exposed to any airborne contamination, and so most especially so if you are riding off-road, and this product is pretty heavily marketed to the off-road world. I mean, Wolftooth is sort of more of an off-road company versus road, and a lot of the marketing, it is sort of pretty well geared towards the mountain bike and off-road demographic. It's just physics. Dirt, dust sticks on contact to something that's wet. So if your chain lubricant is wet, then that will stick to it and become part of it. So having a product that claims to clean as it lubricates, so even if that were true, you've got the issue of it is rapidly attracting all of the grit that it's, the cleaning component is going to need to do. So it's really one of these things. It's like, do you want something that's going to prevent the lubricant from becoming contaminated and abrasive to begin with, as opposed to it, actively attracting all this abrasive contamination and then supposedly having some mechanism with which to try to deal with that. So kind of like, if I gave you the choice, I could either stab you 1,000 times with a prison shiv, but I'm going to give you a first aid kit afterwards, or I'm not going to stab you 1,000 times with a shiv. Most people are going to choose the latter unless they have some kind of fetish thing. So, that's kind of what we have with, wet lubricants that are really quite wet. That's really the worst type of option that you want to have if you're going to head out into the world of dirt and dust. The only wet lubricants that have tested, sort of not terribly, some have actually tested fairly impressively in the world of dirt and dust. The reason they have been able to do so is that they have been much less wet than most wet lubricants. So they do so by way of so little of that product needs to be applied to really effectively lubricate, that once you apply it, wipe the excess and so on, the chain is much less wet, especially externally, than a lot of other wet lubricants where the chain just very quickly does become really quite wet all over. And with WT1, it was a very wet lubricant. So if you've used the product, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's not one that you can kind of keep sort of, relatively impressively not wet, like some such as Silka Synergetic, Rex Black Diamond. You really need so little of those lubricants to very effectively protect against wear and have actual great lubrication going on. Silka Synergy is also sort of in that category as well. A lot of wet lubricants are just, as by their, demographic name and nature, quite wet. And so for those of you, especially that, if you're familiar with like a lot of the muck off, wet lubricants, you'll just know they're very wet and they become externally very dirty. And then you get the corresponding chain wear that occurs with that. All right, I'll just play this little bit because this one's quite relevant to these claims as well.
It's a really concentrated lubricant. About 95% of this is lubricant versus most chain lubes would be 20 to 50%.
Alrighty, I'd like to, know or see where they've got that data from. Absolutely, there's a lot of, in the wet lubricant space where that may well be true, where a lot of the actual product is carrier. And there's then I guess it's just a component or a percentage that is the actual lubricant, and the carrier is meant to mostly evaporate off. However, for a lot of other, a lot of wet lubricants, that's not the case either. Again, your Silka Synergetics, your X-Black Diamonds, your Synergies, I mean, they are basically, you're looking at all lubricant, that's what they are. A lot of the top wax lubricants, by volume, you're looking at sort of around about the 50% by volume. So you've got about 50% carrier, 50% wax that's going to be left behind. So the sort of out of what's out there on the market, to sort of say that most of 20 to 30% is fairly, I would say, not a very genuine claim. I guess they're sort of cherry picking some sort of more lowball data there. But the fact that their product is 95% lubricant, that does lead us down a little, I guess, an interesting check, let's say, against their product claims. All right, just for fun, the smallest PowerPoint presentation. I can't tell you how long it's been since I used PowerPoint. Here we go. All right, so I mentioned earlier, just with regards to the amount of sort of product you would need to effectively clean off factory grease, and this will kind of apply to claims of sort of cleaning out contamination that has been gathered as well. So on a typical application of a lot of wet lubricants, you would generally apply around 3 mil per application, and your chain will be over 100 links long in general. Most chains around 108 links, maybe 114 to 116 for some mountain bikes. So you're looking at around 0.03 mil per link of lubricant that you are applying to your chain. So it's a pretty small amount. As per their claims, so 95% of the product is lubricant. That leaves a maximum of 5% of the product can be their detergent, that is their cleaning agent. So 5% of 0.03 mil is all of 0.0015 of a mil per link, or just over 1/10,000th of a mil per link. Now, as you know, I'm generally a pretty diplomatic guy, but really, what the fuck is that going to do in terms of cleaning your chain, be it factory grease or be it grit and contamination? Okay, so for those of you that have sort of seen news today, you will have seen that Silka launched their new chain stripper. So super concentrated solvent to strip off the factory grease from the chain, and that I believe they say just 100 mil will really effectively strip off that factory grease. It might be even a little bit less than that, but I think from memory that's what it was. So, all right, if I gave you a syringe applicator that was going to apply, 1/10,000th of a mil of a solvent or cleaner per link to your chain that you were going to apply as you go along, let's be generous, even if it applied 2/10,000ths of a mil per link as you applied it to the chain, and I told you that that was going to clean off the factory grease, or that it was going to remove the contamination in your chain, I think you would quite rightly have some words for me with regards to my marketing honesty and claims. And so, it's pretty obvious. And aside from the fact that obviously, whilst this lubricant is on your chain, make no, illusions about it. When you have a wet lubricant on your chain, when you are outdoors riding, you are attracting contamination actively. And if you're taking that out into the world of dirt and dust, you're doing that at a pretty rapid clip. Your friction and wear is going to be increasing from kilometer zero when you have quite a wet lubricant, or even just a medium wet lubricant on your chain. It is just a mismatch of product to purpose in general to run a wet lubricant in the world of dirt and dust. Hence, as you know, I keep hammering on if that is your demographic, to have a look at the top wax strip or immersive wax options. So you have something on your chain. It is wet. Therefore, every particle of dirt and dust that comes into contact with it is sticking to it. And the marketing is that this product is going to clean as it lubricates because it has, say, 2/10,000ths of a mil of a detergent in the product. So, marketing claims versus reality, sometimes it's actually, it's really just I find it's, I guess, disrespectful to the cycling demographic, because it is taking, I guess, your, quite likely naivety about, such claims, because you're not going to have spent an inordinate amount of your time in your life thinking about how chain lubrication works. A lot of people are going to trust in a brand, trust in a product claims that they have put on a bottle and put on a website, that in general most people like to think that if they're doing that, that there is some basis or a lot of basis of truth to those claims. And to me, it is really taking advantage of, the cycling public and consumers when claims are just so far off from any possible physical reality or logic. It's just taking advantage of you. And I'm really, as you can tell, I'm a diplomatic guy, but that kind of stuff, I guess it's a big driver of why I do what I do here at ZFC, because it shouldn't happen. And again, I expect much better from a company like Wolftooth. There are companies where that kind of behavior would be completely par for the course. But I'm very disappointed to see that come from Wolftooth. I have a theory as to why this has happened for such a company, but I'll get to that more towards the end. All right, just one last bit from the video to play, just to quickly.
It's a long time coming. We've been working on it for about 5 years, and we're bringing it to market today with the help of SCC Tech, a company we partnered with to develop it. You might ask, why is Wolftooth bringing up chain lube to market? Well, first and foremost, we want our customers to get the most out of their drivetrains and our components. We make over 300 different chain rings. We have 3 different tooth profiles. We have an extensive data set of field testing, both ours and our customers. We do listen to our customers.
Okie dokie, let's have a quick chat about that. All right, so if they do a lot of testing, field testing with themselves and their customers, then I would love to know what they have. So what's been sort of just, I guess, any kind of control test protocol. It's difficult for field testing, but you can put some good, I guess, practices into place to get some good field test data back over time. So both for their own product and for, I guess, competitor products that they are putting that against. Obviously wanting to maximize their customers' drivetrain lifespans and so on. So that's something that now we'll jump into what the zero friction cycling test data shows. And so I would love to know what, Wolftooth have from their own testing. And at the end of the day, I guess as well, where is that test data? It should be on the website if you've gone through the effort to do it. And from doing such testing, that has to yourself substantiated what you believe about the product, such that you're going to bring it to market and put your name behind it. If that data substantiates that, where is it? Why isn't it on the website sitting behind that product? All right, to the zero friction cycling data from the main test. If I sort the wear rate results just for block 1, which is the start, so no contamination, running is basically really perfect as conditions as a lubricant will get, because it's running indoors basically on an ergo. So it's still not great. I mean, it's not an absolute disaster, but it's certainly pretty poor. So we're looking at we are in 27th place out of all lubricants tested. So that's pretty bad. It's really down into the bottom quarter of the chart or the data table. And obviously, the top tested wet lubricants are a small fraction of the wear. So it's really not competitive against the top tested wet lubricants, even in perfect conditions. However, when we go to see how it went in, once we started adding dry contamination, it's not dropped too much in terms of places. It's certainly dropped still a few more. So we're down to 31st place and right down into the bottom quarter of all lubricants tested. But 52.9%, so basically half of the chain was abraded through, or half of the chain's wear life eaten through just in 1,000 kilometers in the dry contamination test block. So that's really, really poor. And so it goes to show that, number one, it attracts contamination extremely readily, and being quite wet, the wetter the lubricant, the greater the pathway contamination has from getting outside the chain to inside, where it's going to cause a lot of wear damage. And obviously that and this may come as a shock, but that circa 2/10,000ths of a mil of cleaning agent is not really coming to save the day. Pick yourselves back up off the floor on that one. So of interest as well, I did test, because they do claim that because of the cleaning agent in WT1 that you can apply it just over the factory grease. You don't need to clean the factory grease off first. Again, a strong marketing angle, because a lot of people don't want to faff with cleaning off factory greases. They just want to add lube to their chain, as opposed to having to faff around with solvents. So lubricants that market that, hey, you can just apply it straight on top and everything will be grand. That's a strong selling point to people. So we can actually see that it was a little bit better than if I applied it to factory grease in clean block 1. But in block 2, once we started adding contamination, again, this may shock you, but the factory grease was going to be largely still very present. The extremely tiny amount of cleaning agent not having cleaned off the factory grease. So, it's pretty much basically we've got a 15% or thereabouts lower wear rate in the block 2 when the factory grease is still helping, as opposed to when we have just the wolf tooth product alone. There's no real ability. So when we go to block 3, so block 3 is the same as block 1. It just moves straight on. The test continues straight on. There's no cleaning intervention by myself in the test. It is up to the lubricant, because a lot of lubricants do claim that they clean as they lubricate, as does this one. So we can see that there was really no improvement at all in block 3, even though there's no contamination being added now. So basically what was added in block 2 is still there in block 3. It has not removed a thing. We can see with some wet lubricants where there is a reduction in wear rate from that block 2 through to block 3. Depends on the wet lube a fair bit. Whereas one, so Nix Friction is probably a good example, where it was 27.4% in block 2, and it sort of nearly halved that in block 3. So there was some level of flush cleaning there that was really not present for WT1. All right, so a quick look at the cumulative results. If I sort by block 5, so we can see that the test itself was stopped at the end of block 3 because we exceeded the wear rate allowance for the test chain. So we are having to use extrapolated data for block 4 and for into block 5. If you want to know more about how that works, watch the video just prior to this one, where I go through an update on the cost to run modeling, which does cover the data extrapolations used for blocks where the test physically didn't run that far. So, sorted that the wrong way, sorry. So if we can see that it's, not done well, we've got to basically extrapolated, but probably expected if we ran the chain right through to the end of the 5,000 kilometers, because the block 4 things get pretty harsh, that we're going to have, it's a pretty bad time. So 239%. So we pretty much would have used close to 2.5 chains to get through to the end of the 5,000 kilometer main test, to get to the end of block 5. So, not great. The top wet lubricant tested to date was at, say, 91.7% by the end of block 5 and 97.1 for the next best. So, sort of pretty much around, I guess, just a bit over sort of 1/3 the wear, but probably about 40% of the wear at the end of the main 5,000 kilometer test versus WT1. So, it's a fair bit behind, and that's going to obviously carry over in your cost to run. So again, sorry, this looks a bit small. If we look at, say, just in the dry gravel, WT1, it's right down the bottom here. In the bottom quarter again, with cost to runs at sort of around 4 times what it would be versus using a top. Even this is comparing it just to a sort of top wet lubricant option before we even look at the cost to run for the top waxes. So actually, it's pretty much about a fifth of the cost to run to use a proven top wet lubricant as opposed to a Wolf Tooth 1 option. So pretty safe to say that the test results certainly are a complete and utter mismatch to their particular claims. And as such, I would very much love to see their field test data. If you were to, and I mean, you can do this at home. You can field test Wolf Tooth WT1 out on your mountain bike or gravel bike, especially, and then compare that to, say, Silka Synergetic or Silka Synergy or Rex Black Diamond or Rex Domestique. See how your wear rates go. See how dirty your drivetrain gets and how quickly versus one of those other products. So the test results, again, they match what would logically be expected. To date, every single time a wet lubricant has been very wet, it has completely bombed in the dry contamination test block. And again, that's just pretty much always going to happen. There's just not going to be, from just basic physics, no real way around that. It is going to attract the contamination, and the contamination has a vector path or a medium to transport itself from outside to in. If you imagine that you have dust sitting on the outside of a solid wax chain, how does it get from there to deep inside the chain to the pin? There's no medium, there's no vector. So, and we see this a lot with even your sort of top wax strip lubes, even if they're not a true solid, if they're a semi-solid or like a paste. Again, it's very, very hard for the dust to get from outside to deep inside the chain. And being, even a semi-solid, there's going to be vastly less dust, attracted and sticking to the chain as opposed to a wet lube. Again, things you can do. You can pour some dirt on one arm that's dry, pour some dirt on one arm that's wet. See which one has more stick to it, and so on. So, when we get test results that really match logic and physics, that's always great, and we've got that again in this case. So obviously what's really, to me, very disappointing is that, we have a very wet lubricant that is marketed pretty heavily for off-road, and that is a mismatch of product to purpose, and please may they explain to me how that is not so. We have, frankly, complete and utter bullshit claims about cleaning as it lubricates and able to clean factory grease. Just aside from the fact that there is no Harry Potter magic that goes on where this takes place, where it cleans out the factory grease and the grit, and then lubricating properties come in and take over. It's one liquid on your chain. The amount of cleaning product within that, based on their own claims of it being 95% lubricant, it's just laughably ridiculous and very disappointing that claim has been put forward. And if I have somehow miscalculated or misconstrued this claim, again, Wolftooth, please explain how I'm incorrect in my rather strong feelings on that particular claim. And pretty much if you have a wet lubricant that claims that it cleans as it lubricates, you can basically apply everything I've just said here to that product as well. All right, just a quick look at a couple of picks. So at end of the test for WT1 at 3,000 kilometers, that is the chain. So it doesn't look amazing. Again, prior to these picks, after the final relube, then the excess is thoroughly wiped, so the chain is sort of wiped clean as much as would be reasonable or expected for one to be doing when they apply their lubricant at home. So it's pretty thorough, and yeah, it doesn't look too amazing. That's the cassette. So this is again after 3,000 kilometers. Compare it to say Synergetic. So it's not perfectly clean, but you can tell that is a lot cleaner and a lot less wet. And similar with the Synergetic cassette. So, and that's the WT1 pulleys. So, yeah, it's just not great. And even for riding on, if you were only riding on road in great conditions in the dry, It's far from competitive. It was basically around sort of 7-8 times more, higher wear rate versus the top tested wet lubricants in that clean block 1, which is sort of kind of like your dry road simulation block. So it's just not a great product really for anything. We didn't test it because it didn't make it to the wet conditions block 4, so I don't know how it performs in the wet per se. What I can say is that in every single test, the wear rate in wet block 4 is markedly higher than the wear rate in dry contamination block 2, and its block 2 performance was pretty terrible. So its performance in wet conditions, it just isn't really going to do anything magic from there. So if it's poor in block 2, it's going to be worse in block 4. So although not tested for its wet performance, yeah, it would be quite the shock if it came out with a competitive result or even a not terrible result. Okay, so where do I think things went wrong for Wolftooth here? Because generally a great reputable company with great products. I think it's going to come down. So you may have heard in their video that this was developed in conjunction with a company called SCC. So there is a product out there, and it seems to be fairly well known that it seems like this is a product called SCC Slick, so a lubricant made by SCC that has been rebottled and rebranded for Wolftooth. Now, whether or not it was developed with Wolftooth and SCC Slick, we don't know. I guess the main belief is that SCC Slick already had a product out. It was, for some reason, relatively popular or well regarded, and that Wolftooth have wanted to put their branding on and sell that as a product for them, for their own brand. We saw, something similar, except the product was just a whole lot better. So, for those, if you cast your minds back about 5 years, a product called Nix Friction was quite well known as Silka Nix Friction. It wasn't developed by Silka, it was developed by a company called Nix Friction. They made a great wet lubricant, and it was pretty much, one of the top wet lubricants known at the time. And being young in this space and not having developed their own wet lubricant at the time, Silka purchased the license to be able to sell that as a Silka product from Nix Friction. So it is likely that, the step 1, that's where this product has come from. Step 2, and this is purely my own, guesses at this stage, and really I need Wolftooth to be able to, tell me how incorrect I am. My guess is that SCC, who have supposedly developed the product, have told Wolftooth a whole bunch of wonderful things about this lubricant that they have made and brought to market. Wolftooth really liked the sound of that. They wanted to have a lubricant in the space, as a lot of companies seem to do these days, because we just don't have enough lubricants out there. So now they've either just swallowed everything that SCC have told them hook, line and sinker, or if they have done some of their own and customer field testing and been happy with that, then again, I'd love to see what that field testing protocol and data wrap comprised of, because if I field tested this product versus just about anything else, it is unlikely that I would come away impressed and being excited to sort of put my own highly reputable company's branding on that product. It makes no sense. So there's been, I think, a whole lot of great selling by SCC to Wolftooth, who have not done sufficient due diligence and just sort of swallowed that all hook, line and sinker and gone to market. I really would like Wolftooth to prove me wrong on a whole bunch of stuff, and they can add to the list telling me how wrong I am about, this sort of, educated guess as to what may have occurred as to why they have this product out under their name that's really not great at all. If they did develop with SCC and did do a whole bunch of testing to substantiate that this is a brilliant product they should bring to market, it offers, something over and above a whole bunch of other, just countless competitors that are out there, and they can substantiate that, then please bring that forth, because I would most love to see it. Okay, so it's a bit of a wrap summary. Something I should be doing much more often. All right, it is Wolftooth WT1 is competitively poor in clean conditions writing. It is competitively quite horrendous in harsh conditions writing. The cleaning as it lubricates claims are frankly quite infuriating. Wolftooth, please substantiate this claim with data and the testing protocol to prove this claim. Please provide the field test data to back this product's performance. Again, you have supposedly 5 years of work with SCC behind this, so there should be a whole bunch of robust testing that you have done, that you claim you have done with both yourselves and customers to field test this product, and been so happy that you have put your name on it. So overall, basically, Wolftooth, I guess, just provide the information that will just completely shoot down this entire review. That is really what we're kind of looking at you to do, because it's really poor, and I'm very disappointed that it is out there. And obviously, the more that it is marketed, the more people that purchase it are really not having Wolftooth's stated aim of maximizing their drivetrain lifespan. It's just going to, hit them in the back pocket pretty hard, unfortunately. Okay, and lastly, obviously, if you are a racer and friction and watts losses are important to you, then it just flat out takes friction to abrade through the hardened steel parts of your chain at a rapid rate. So if you have a lubricant that is doing that 5 to 8 times faster than the proven top, even wet drip lubricants, that physically takes friction to do so. There's no getting around that. So just bear that in mind as well. All right, I know. I didn't keep it to 20 to 30 minutes like I hope, but they hopefully give me a little bit more leeway. There was just a touch more on this one to go into, because it was pretty poor and some pretty big claims just to sort of cover. And I take those opportunities, I guess, to explain a bit in depth as to why those claims are complete bullshit, so that hopefully you can sort of carry that knowledge over to other products that you're looking at. You don't need to wait for me to do a detailed review on those products. You can take your knowledge from some of the reviews and the information that you get from these videos, and just sort of field apply that to the product claims that you're looking at on the bottle or on the website. I will be doing a little video on, because I get test requests all the time about, have I seen this product? What do you think about this product, and so on. And I mean, there's 1,000+ lubricants out there. So I'm going to do a little video on questions that you should ask the manufacturer if you think that the product is great, because be it a bio lube from Biomaxa or whatever it may be. There's just so much stuff always coming through. Just questions that you should go to them to ask about the claims they have on their website and their product, because if they really should have something to substantiate the claim. So number one, if they do, why isn't it on the website to start with? And number two, when you ask them, they should be super happy to provide that to you, because if they have nailed it and they do have it, the best thing ever is someone asking you about it, because you want to shout it from the rooftops to all who will sort of take on board all the wonderful things that you've done to bring this great product out. If it's hard to get substantive information on what they have to back the claims, it's a pretty big red flag. So I'm going to do one of the shorter videos on just what questions you should fire through to the manufacturers, because if you do get great responses, then that will, I guess, be a product that's going to shoot right up my sort of list of things to have a look at, as opposed to it is just another one of 1,000 making the same kind of bullshit claims with nothing to back it. And I can't test all of those. I would be testing till I'm 100,000 years old. So yeah, I hope that me going into some of that depth will help you apply this stuff to things in general, help you know what questions to sort of fire off if you're unsure. And that's why, as per usual, I'm running a little bit long. But thank you for, again, as always, making it this far. And yeah, have a great time, stay low friction and stay safe out there, and I will catch you on the next one.